Well, hello. I am here again. This is the series Lethal Loyalties. When you know you need to walk away, but you just don't know how to leave, or you just don't want to let it go, or you don't know how to let it go. It's all of them. And give me one moment. The topic today is what happens when staying is all we know, but healing is what we need. Sometimes we get involved in stuff, and for whatever reason, we have a hard time. Oh my goodness, it's my sister. Hey, girl. Of course, y'all
Hey,
did know I did put the flyers out. Y'all knew she was coming, but I have to be my extra self and be totally surprised. Hi, sister.
hi, man.
I'm her older sister, so I'm her day one. I
Let's
was
get that
there
straight.
day one with
Day,
your whole life.
day one.
Okay, so this is my sister Elise Smith. Just to put some stuff out there, we have both been married multiple times. As our parents will be celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. We'll get into that later. Um, I love my sister. She is my baby sister. She's taller than me, of course. Everybody thinks she's older, but that's neither here nor there. So let's jump right into this. You got married at 17.
Got married at 17.
Let's talk. I want you to tell me, how did that shape everything?
Mhm. I think that I first of all I have to be honest. I wanted to get married because I was running. I didn't like my relationship with our parents, and I felt like if I left, I would find something better. But I actually did not think our mother would have signed the paperwork for me to get married because I was 17, and so legally I needed an adult's permission to do that. And when she did sign the paperwork, it made me feel like they didn't want me. And
Mm,
it made me feel like that the decision I was making to leave, I should do that.
mhm.
And of course I was scared. I was 17. Like
Of course.
when you're running and you don't really know what you're running from, you run into other things
Mm,
that you're not ready for. And so it set a road for a lot of decisions later on that could have destroyed me, that almost
mm.
did destroy me.
Yes.
Um, you're looking for love. You left home because you didn't feel love, and you got married to find love. But it wasn't until later on my healing journey that I found out everything I was looking for was within me.
Mm.
Didn't know that.
That's good.
Took went around, came back, and then found out, oh my God, I need to love my. But when you're wounded and you're open for prey. And
Yes.
you don't know that the love you need is within yourself. You're looking from it from without. And I know that everybody doesn't believe in God. So God, the enemy, the world, it sees and it presents us situations. And I was presented a situation. I took the out.
Right. And I know we grew up with the same parents, obviously. And you said you got married at 17. Why do you think, and I mean, I have my own opinions because you are my sister. You were 17. How much was your husband young also? Was he much older than you? And what else was going on besides you wanting to run away also? What else was going on in your
So
life?
so I think, and let me just say this to start off. My mother, I just want to say this. I'm not mad at her. I'm not angry with her because I can only speak from my place. I don't think anybody intentionally does anything. I don't think she said, oh my God, I'm gonna sign this paper because this is gonna ruin her life. I don't think that. Now that I'm a parent, I think we do make decisions best at the time. So I think she did the best she could at the time. It still had repercussions. As we know as parents, when we decide things, it has repercussions. He was 8.5 years older than me. And I'm gonna be honest, anybody who knows me, I don't care if there's two people watching, I'm gonna keep it 100. Ain't no way on God's green earth I'll have a daughter that I will let my daughter marry anybody 8 years older. I would not. Um, I wanted her to say, "Hey, I know you're pregnant," because I was pregnant.
Okay.
And I felt like she was embarrassed. I felt like they, growing up in the
Mhm.
church,
Let's talk about it.
both of them being in the ministry, I felt like it was easier for me to get
Mm,
married than to just say, "Hey, I messed up." And I also felt like they wanted foster kids, they wanted room. And so for me, I felt like I was in a way. I was a problem. So it was easy for them to say, "This is a quick solution. Let's do this." And because my relationship wasn't good with them, I took the out.
yeah, I
I
understand,
felt
man.
it can't be worse, but it was.
Okay, and let's talk about that. So what did you because what did you experience in that marriage, like being 17? I remember my niece was premature, wasn't she born early?
Rare.
So now you're 17, you have this little baby that was born sooner than she should. I mean, I was in my own stuff, so I feel like I wasn't really there to help, but our mother was still there. Our parents were there and they could have really guided you through this. What did that look like for you?
Let me give an example. My senior year, I got married in April. I
Mm,
graduated in June. Tori came September, and I turned 18 that November. That was what my senior year looked like. So within a span of a year, I graduated high school, I got married, had a baby, and turned 18. I think the most detrimental part about being married at 17 is, number one, you don't know who you are. You're not developed, not mentally, not emotionally, and really not physically. So what happens is you don't get a chance to see who you are or who you can be, because you're now have somebody way older than you dictating, this looks right, this, and you don't know.
right.
So, and what I learned was I went from one controlling household to another. So it didn't feel wrong because he was actually doing the same thing my mom was doing. So it felt right.
Ooh,
You
that's
know,
good.
I remember being 110 pounds after having two kids, and he thought I was fat. So in my mind, I'm fat.
Yeah.
So what do you do as a woman? You adjust because you want love. So for everything that was negative, I kept adjusting because I wanted him to love me. I needed this to work. I needed this to work because I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be fair. So it was going to work. Whatever I had to do to make it work, it was going to work.
Right. And, and was there
It was. I think that a lot of people say emotional abuse is not that bad. There was physical, but I feel like the emotional, the mental are worse. I'm going to tell you why. Scars can heal when people put their hands on you, but the mental and the emotional abuse, it changes the way you see life. Not only the way you see life, but the way you see yourself. 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years, you are still trying to get out of your head things that
yeah.
was said to you. And it's so funny because I'm now 55 and I'm single. I remember being married and sleeping on the edge of the bed
Mm,
out of fear. I'm 55. I sleep in my own bed. I still sleep on the edge of the bed. Some
wow.
things out of subconscious we just do. Listen, I remember being depressed and the house always dark. I didn't open. My sister gonna test. I didn't open up the blinds. I just did it, and subconsciously to this day, my sister came over recently. She's like, "Girl, you got to get some light. Open up the blind." It's not that I was trying to be in the dark, but you create habits to survive. And over the period of time, you don't even realize that you're still doing it. You're just doing it.
Yes.
I learned how to function in the dark. So right now,
Ooh,
to
that's
this day,
deep.
if my house was dark, I can get around and do everything. But that's not a good thing. And so it spilled over into every part of my life. And a lot of people say, well, if you get out and you just do it different, but you take you with you. So everywhere you go that you're not healed, yourself is going to meet you there. And those
Yeah.
issues you're still got to deal, they don't go away. They don't. Not without work, not without help. They don't go away.
So while you were in this, we both were going to the church. Did you reach out uh, for help at the
I
church?
remember this one instance, the bishop at the time, and back then I know different now. I felt like he was God. Like whatever he said, if he said didn't do it, we didn't. It's weird because if he said didn't do, we don't do it. We didn't go pray to God. We just did what he said.
Yes, we did.
And so one day it was a Sunday. Me and Hoper were walking through the church. Not me to say his name. Anyway, and Bishop was like, "Hey, you guys were on my mind. I want to talk to you." And in my mind, I was like, "Yes, God dealt with him. This is it." So we go to his office. And Bishop is like, so tell me what's, I'm telling him everything, the hands, the all of this. And he looked at him and said, well, son, well, what's going on? And he said, she doesn't sleep close to me at night. He looked at me and said, well, why don't you sleep close to him? So everything I had told him went out the window. And I knew that day he was a man and nobody was going to help me.
So
That's
you
what
went for
I
help.
realized.
You went for help, and you became
The problem.
you became the problem, and it was your fault because had you not slept on the edge of the bed,
None of
you
that would have
wouldn't
been
have been
happening.
treated that way.
And so I realized that day I was going to keep my mouth shut. So, and I learned, which is not good.
No.
I began to live my life that if nobody rescued me, how are you going to do this? So I didn't ask for help anymore. I didn't say anything to anybody else because in my mind, if the man of God, and I love him, there's so many things that he taught us.
Yes, yes.
And understand that I'm not placing blame because I take full responsibility, and I'm gonna get into that in a minute for my decisions.
Mm,
But I also think when we're in a leadership position and you go to help somebody, you have to hear both sides. You need to be led by God, and you have to be neutral because people's lives hang in the balance
yes.
when we don't do that. And this is not a game. I don't know about other people, but I love God's people. This is not a game. And so for me, I was probably about that time in my early 20s,
Yeah.
and you're asking for help. And so I made up my mind I wasn't going to say anything. And then I noticed in the church that everybody seemed like they had it all together. So I couldn't say that I was having problems because
Right.
back then they made you feel like either you don't have enough God, or what are you doing wrong, or if you were doing this. So in my mind I just said I'm going to be quiet, and what I learned to do, I learned to fake it. I pretended like everything was okay. I would go.
Woo.
I remember this one incident, and my daughter actually reminded me about this. I remember this one incident. We had got to this big argument, and I was getting ready to go speak at the time, and I don't even know what we were fighting about. But I just remember him putting his like hands around my neck, and my feet were off the floor in front of my kids. And my crazy behind, let me tell you what I did. After it was over, I wouldn't go speak. Who does
Who
that? Who
does that?
does
And
that?
and what is our topic once again? What
Why?
happens when staying is all we know,
And let me tell you
but
something.
healing is what we
I
need,
told I,
and you still stayed?
I told my sister when she asked me this, I realize now, in order to understand why you stayed, you really have to know what where you were running
Mhm.
from, what drove you there, because that has a lot to do with why we stay. I stayed because for lots of reasons. Number one, I didn't want to be a failure. I didn't want to be embarrassed. I didn't want the church talking about me. I didn't want people to say, "Oh my God, she's a missionary," and now I didn't want it, and I knew it would be my fault. I didn't want any of that. I did not
Mm.
want that. I also felt like I would be a failure. And then if I left, who's going to love me? I got I
Yes.
got married because I needed him to love me. So if I
Woo.
leave, who's going to love me now? So I stay, and in my mind, they kept saying, just pray. And so the more they said pray, the more I pray. I did everything they said, and it wasn't enough. It just, I was dying. I
Mm.
remember one time I was on my knees praying, and I this is a true story. The burden was so heavy. I thought I was gonna pass out just from under it. And I remember praying, and I remember the hand of God touching my chest and just lifted it enough so that I could go on some more. I had two
Mm.
kids to raise. And it
Yes.
just came to the point where I was in survival mode
Yeah.
the whole
Me
17 years.
too. Me too. Oh my God.
I stayed 17 years. That is most of my adult, teenage, and adult life. And so, but all that time I wasn't living. I was surviving. I was surviving. And this is my thing. Would I tell somebody to leave? No, I would not. Would I tell them what I think they should do? No, I would not. And I hate to hear people say, because if I was her, I would just leave until you walk in somebody's shoes, shut your mouth.
Shut your
Because
mouth until you.
you don't know what a person's going through. But what I would tell that person to do is I would ask them to choose themselves. Because I lived in the 20 minutes of wonderful. And what does
Let's
that
talk
mean?
about
For
that
for
20 minutes
every
of
for
wonderful.
every time it was wonderful, in those 20 minutes they give you hope. And in your mind, you're saying he's gonna change. This is it, it's gonna be better. So the 20 minutes that you live in gives you hope for the next 5 or 6 years. The
Mm,
20 minutes never last. But in your mind, it's hope because you want this to work. Or if it doesn't work, two things got to happen. You actually got to look at yourself and take accountability. Nobody wants to do that.
it's
You got
hard.
to ask yourself. It's not about what he did. It's about what did you do to get here? Because regardless of what he did, I played a part. I
Yeah.
played a part. We all play a part. Sometimes what he, but we do stuff too. There was a time God would be like, "Shut your mouth." I'll be like, "I will," after I say this, because it got to a point where you get tired, you're in your flesh, you're staying, but you ain't staying right.
Yeah.
You staying, but you fighting. You're staying, and then we stay for the kids. As soon as I left, my kids said, "Oh my God, I wish you would have did that sooner."
You
So
know,
in my
I
mind,
said the same
because
thing.
as a woman, if you're okay, they're okay. If you're not okay, they're not okay. They feel what we feel. When you're sad, they may never come up and say, "Oh my God," they feel you though. And so you're teaching them behavior by your behavior. So when we don't love ourselves, that's what we teach them to do. And so it took me making several mistakes. But I'm gonna tell you what's funny. So I stayed, and it's so funny because no matter how bad it got, I wasn't gonna leave. But see, this what happens when God loves you.
Oh,
He'll
come
turn your world
on.
upside
Come
down.
on.
He'll turn your world upside down to get you to do what you're supposed to save your life.
Yes.
So I remember we had moved, and I got into this big argument with him. And I thought to myself, I'm gonna leave in September. That's just thought it. Went to work. My boss came up to me and said, "My mother had a dream about you. And in the dream, you were caught in a spider's nest." She said, "And the spider was going to kill you." My mother told me to ask you how you know you're going to make it to September. I took the next day off.
Mm,
I packed my stuff, and as much as I didn't want to do it, I said, "Mom, I need to come home." It's that woman didn't know me. I had never met her. I had thought that in my mind. God, I guess God said, "You're not gonna move. I'm gonna put some fire under you." He loves us so much that even in our mistakes, He'll make a way for us to
make,
escape, but we gotta take
yes.
it, and He'll fix it, just like the children of Israel. You can't go back. The walls are on the side, and you have no choice but to go forward. And sometimes we stay because the dysfunction is better than what we don't
Because
know. We rather
it's
live in this.
familiar. It feels
It's all we
safe.
know. So you rather stay there because you're saying, "At least I know what's going to happen here." But if I go out there, I was
Yeah.
scared. I was a stay-home mom. I was not working. I had to go get a job. I had to grow up. I had to take care of me and those two kids. And so it was hard. It was
Yeah.
very hard. And but you would think, "Oh, she got it, huh?" No, of course I
And that
didn't.
leads us to marriage number
Two,
two.
because this is what happens when you don't heal and you are broken. You make broken decisions. You don't make good
Come on.
decisions where you're not
Come
healed.
on.
You don't make good decisions. I don't care what nobody say. If you're broken, you make decisions from a broken place.
Yes.
If you're not healed, you make decisions from it. You don't have it all in the Bible. When God washed that man's eyes, He said, "What do you see?" He said, "Oh, I see men as trees." God said, "Let me dip you again." Dipped him again. He was able to see. Sometimes we need to go back to the roots and say, "Okay, what happened?" Now, mind you, in between that, I had to go to my mom. I had to go to my dad. I had to sit them down and I had to explain to them how they made me feel, how all these things, and they apologized. And not, even though they apologized and we moved on, I still had residue to deal with because all the decisions I made were coming to bite me in the butt. I chose church over healing because it was
Mm,
easy.
yes.
What does that mean? I did praise and worship broken. I spoke broken. I taught classes broken because that's easier than healing because healing hurts.
Yep.
Doing the work of healing, nobody wants to do that. That hurts. And so did I heal? Absolutely not. I got married again.
So
I got married.
how did that marriage go?
So that marriage, he was actually a really nice guy, but I wasn't, because the stain, when I stayed, it changed me. It did something to me, and so I wasn't gonna let him leave me because of what I experienced. Nobody was gonna tell me what to do because what I experienced, and so he was actually better at some things, but I wouldn't let him be.
Mm.
Why wouldn't I let him be? Because I had experienced, I was guarded. I was going to protect my own self, and I really didn't let him in. And we had a little tragedy that happened, and what I realized is life is a trip. He watched me, and he wanted me, and he sent his representative. But
Mm.
because
Ooh.
I wasn't because I wasn't healed, I didn't know that. So when he sent his representative, it made me think, you know why I picked him? Because he was different. He was different than the other one.
Mm.
So I thought, he's different. I'm gonna get a different love. This is it because of what he showed me, but it wasn't real. He sent his represent. I mean, he did all these things, and I thought, this is what I'm missing. This is it. But when we got married, he wasn't any of those things.
He
He
left.
couldn't. He couldn't keep them up
Yeah.
because that's wasn't who he was. He said, and when later on when we ended up, and I asked him, he said, "Well, if I had told you the truth, I knew you wouldn't have married me.
Wow. That's crazy.
But had I been
Yeah.
healed, I would have saw that.
You would
But
have
because
saw it.
I remember, I'm still searching. It leaves you open to pray when you're searching. You listen when you got a wound on your hand. Let some dirt get into it.
Lisa
And
said,
so
"Quit coming for me."
it's gonna get infected if you keep it. You don't clean. When you have a wound, it hurts.
It
You put
hurts.
alcohol peroxide on, it's not gonna feel good. But in a couple of days, if you leave it alone, you do what you're supposed to do, it'll heal. It may even leave a scar, but you ain't gonna have no pain. But what we do, we cover it up dirty.
Mm.
Put a band-aid on it, put clothes on it, and go. We bumping it, feel the pain, go on like we don't feel it until it's infected. And we do this all the time. We are too ashamed to say, I messed, even then, I refuse to say again, I
Mm.
messed up. I wasn't gonna do it. I made so many excuses, this and that, but it was me. It was me. I made so many excuses that it was me. And so it's funny because even now, and mind you, I'm good friends with both my ex-husbands. I'm good. My first husband, when he left, we never did the child support thing. He was a good provider. He's a good father to his kids. And I look back and we've talked because in order to move on, you got to go back. So
Yeah.
we talked and said, hey, we both could have did some things
That's
differently.
good.
There's got
That's
to be
good.
forgiveness there, and we both took responsibility. So we just didn't say, oh, we gonna divorce that we met. That's my friend. When he lost his mother, I called him.
That's good.
If I said, hey, one of our kids are moving, he comes. And so you don't burn bridges because you leave. We don't do that. You're not supposed to. And so with this second one, even after we broke up and everything, and we talked, and it's funny because being single recently, he came to me and he was like, you know what, you're single now, and I think we should date. And this is what I told him: the broken Elise chose you,
Mm.
and when she was broken, she chose you because of where she was. But this Elise is different.
Come on,
I see
girl.
you.
Mm.
I see, and I choose me. And then mind you, he'll provide for me right to this day. He bought a condo. I can move it. Life will be easy. He would take care of me. But I'd rather suffer, and I'd rather struggle and choose me than to let somebody rescue me that is not God. I'm not going to do it.
And let's reframe that. You just rather choose you because
Period.
you're not going to suffer.
Period.
And because we're not saying choosing you choosing you, you're not going to suffer. It is
That is true.
okay
That is
to
true.
choose you. It is totally okay. I love that how you said you chose him in a broken place, but now that you're not in that broken place, you see different now.
But it took healing because I'm gonna
Yeah,
tell you
of
something.
course.
Oh,
Of
and let
course.
me tell you something. It's horrible because I got married again.
I was gonna ask you about that. Go
But
ahead,
this
let's talk
time, but I'm
about
gonna
it.
tell you, but let me tell you what's funny. It's not really funny. So the first time I stayed 17 years, each time I wasn't gonna stay.
Mm.
I didn't stay long because so the first time I stayed 17, the second time I stayed 10. So at that point, I had been married a total of 27 years. This last one, I'm gonna tell you something, and I just have to keep it 100.
Keep it
I had a
100.
broken relationship with God. Was I praying? Absolutely not. Was I doing what he wanted me to do? Elise was gonna do what she wanted to do.
Mm,
That's where I was. I was sinning. I'm just keeping it. I wasn't where I should be. And what happened? I was called open,
mm-hmm,
open pray again. And so I marry him. Um, but God, once again, my niece Darylyn, I'm gonna give a shout out to her, Darylyn Renee Thomas. Darylyn, call me. And matter of fact,
mm,
when I got married, we were married a month, and me and my youngest son looked at each other and said, "We want to go home." We knew something was wrong.
yeah.
Um, and I also think with this one, not having a balance in the church, and people probably gonna get mad. I really don't care.
You know what?
But not having a balance in the church, I could not tell that he was an alcoholic.
Mm,
All I knew was church, home, and school. I have never been to a party, never been to a club. I didn't do any of those things. So when it is dangerous,
yeah.
because when you go out in the world, because we don't live in church
No, we
24/7.
don't.
You go out in the world and you're entangling with people, you have to know the people you're among. We need to allow our children to have experiences, period.
Period.
So I didn't know he was an alcoholic because, mind you, when we were dating, when we go out, he'd have like, a glass of wine. Okay, cool. But so one day the Lord said, look up in the cabinet. And thank God Jesus talked to me, honey. I saw them vodka bottles. I was like, what is going on? He was drinking 5 to 6 glasses of vodka a day. And after a while, he became violent. So my niece, Darylyn, called me on the phone, Auntie Lise. She said, I would not call you if I knew it wasn't God. She said, Auntie Lise, she said, God is going to make a way for your escape. I could hear like it was yesterday. She said, and when he does, run. She said, because if you don't, it's not going to be good for you, a Christian. Guess what I did? I called my son who lives in Texas. I said, I need to come stay with you. I didn't say nothing to nobody. I didn't even tell him why. I said, I need to come. I put everything I had in the back of my Kia and drove to Texas. I left. I was not playing with God. I was not, oh my God, was that really? I knew it was
Yeah.
him. So,
Yeah.
so mind you, this time I stayed 6 months.
Mm.
And this is what I told him.
It's
This is
not
what I,
funny, but yes.
it is funny. This is what I told him. I've already been through hell and back. You won't get a year from me. You won't get 2 years from me. I'm out of here. And I say it, it's funny now, and it's funny because the other day I was thinking about this, doing this, and I was like, oh my God, I have been really married that many times. But you know what the Spirit of the Lord said? He said, but I'm the only one that take a mess and make it a ministry.
Come on.
I'm the only one that could take all that pain and give purpose to it. So I'm not ashamed of my story, because for every woman that I've helped not to do that, I'd rather tell my story and say, be an open book and say, don't do it. I'm not done.
God, she ain't done,
I'm not
y'all.
done.
Go
So
ahead.
I stayed single for a while. I moved to Texas. Of course, the Lord really didn't tell me to go to Texas and stay, but I thought he did. So I'm walking around the park and the Lord said, what you doing? I was like, I'm walking around the park. He said, go back home. So I went back to LA or whatever. And I was fine. I was single. I was doing good, trying to work on me. I was doing good. And I ended up connecting with somebody I grew up with. And this one, it really almost shook me to my core. So I connected with this person, and this person was saved. And I'm not going to mention her name, but he was saved. And I really thought, now hear me out, because he was in the church,
Yes.
because he was saved, because he was a pastor. I didn't have sex with him. I was like, we're going to do it right. And I was excited. This was the first time I was like, oh, God, I'm going to do ministry the way you want me to. I was knee deep in ministry. I mean, God was blessing. Everything was fine. We get married. So I thought. Now, mind you, I've never had a problem getting a place. Never, ever, ever.
That
And so,
is so true.
so
Ever.
never. All of a sudden, we're together. I can't find a place. We cannot find a place. And I kept telling my sister and my mom, I was like, I'm really okay. Like, if I don't get married, I'm cool. Like, I'm really cool. And there, I didn't see any flags. I'm gonna be honest. And so we get married, whatever. Then there was a situation. He had a death in the family, and I kept seeing stuff. But instead of me dealing with, I kept saying, oh, it's because this family member
Yeah,
died.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the way he's acting. So we go through the ceremony. I'm at home, sleep. 4 o'clock in the morning. God wakes me up. He says, you are not married and he is not divorced. Devastated.
Devastating.
When I say devastated, went through a whole wedding. I was so embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was like, I'm gonna be the one. And they gonna mention my name and they gonna say she done been married all these times and she can't get. I did.
Yeah.
She can't get it to get did it, and I had all this stuff, and it really, really did. It broke me in ways that I'm a strong person, but this broke me in ways where I almost didn't think I was gonna survive it. It was bad because I did everything right this time,
Hmm.
and it still didn't work, but.
But
I'm so grateful that that happened because the me that I am now, I would never be that person. The healing journey that I've started now, although it's been horrendous, I love me. All my mistakes, all my bruises, all that. And I think that it's so important that you got to know who you are.
yeah.
You can't just go through from relationship to relationship. I'm gonna tell you what it's like. This is what the Lord told me it's like. You go on a trip and you pack a bag, and then you take another trip, but you don't unpack that bag. You put some more clothes in it. Then you go on another trip, and you don't unpack from the last two you had. Now your bag is full. But what God wants us to do is unpack. Got to unpack all those relationships before you can really have, and the most important, you got to have one with him.
Yes.
I stayed because I was scared. I stayed because I was embarrassed. I stayed because I thought this is what women did. Things were bad and you
Yeah.
stayed.
That's
I stayed because
that's
I
what we
thought it was
saw.
my fault. I thought I was doing something wrong. I thought if I do it, and every time I changed to do it differently, it wasn't enough. I
Mm.
needed to change again. And so I stayed because I didn't have no support. My sister was in survival mode in her own thing. So you
Yeah.
say we're embarrassed.
Yeah. and and how you said that you have to know yourself. Um, I know for me, it took some unraveling of the stuff we
That's in a
believed.
package. Yes.
What about for you? Did you the stuff we thought and we were raised on, and I'm specifically talking about church, did you have to come to terms and unravel some of that as well?
This last relationship, it did something to me in the sense that I think that I really had a relationship with church and the people, but not God.
Ooh, that's good.
And I'm gonna tell you what that means. We go to church so people will think we're saved. We testify so people will think we have God. We show up so people will think we're faithful. But outside of church, sometimes we're not faithful. We don't know God. We're not showing up for people. And I think that we're not to live in front for the people, we're to live for God. And so what I've learned is in the church, I don't care what nobody's saying. Sometimes it's a platform for a social gathering. But I felt like the God they showed me was a God that if you messed up, he was waiting with a hammer.
Yes.
I didn't feel that there was grace and love. I felt like if I made a mistake, it was detrimental to my salvation. I didn't, and this is my thing. If you're a woman and you've made mistakes and you see me fall, God, dog, help me get up.
Let me
Show me
get
how
up.
to get up. Don't talk about me. If you've been there, show me how to get up. Don't pretend like your life is rosy because that's what the church did. People walked around and you had a past and you could have helped me, but you pretend you did because you've always been. We can't do that. And so what it made me, I wasn't angry at God. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm still struggling to go back to church. Is my relationship with God intact? Yes, it is. Am I closer to God than I've ever been? Yes, I am. I actually doing ministry? Yes, it is. And real ministry is not inside the
Come
church.
on.
It's out there. And so I'm learning how to serve God in a different way. It's me and him. There's no anybody greater than God. There's not one person can't nobody lead me and you in front of God. You can't do that.
Right.
Because if you say he said something, I got the same relationship and he gonna let me know either you did
Come
or you
on.
did. But I don't do church like that anymore. I do God. I don't do church. I do God.
I love it.
I do God.
Your niece, your
I
Jennifer needs to know your hair color.
My
She needs to.
hair color, I'll tell you what it is. It's L'Oreal magenta. Boom, L'Oreal
Ooh,
highlights
that's really
magenta.
pretty.
Yes, so I'm finally in a place with all my mistakes. Oh my God, and there's been so many.
Yeah.
I love me, scars and all.
And
I
you know
do.
what? God loves us.
He
I
does.
just can't stress it enough to our audience because, yes, we both thought that we just that we got we didn't know a loving God. We just thought we were just going to get punished. So we didn't come to him. We didn't, because we were ashamed and condemned. So we want to stress to you that God loves us. He
In
loves
spite
you.
of,
No matter how many mistakes you
in
make,
spite of,
come to God. Just sit there and tell him. And guess what? He's going to still love you.
well, two things. I want to say that if you want your kid, if you're saved and you want your kids to know what the love of God is, love them. If we say we have the love of God, but we don't treat our kids right, what are we showing them?
We
Everything,
showing them.
everything we do in relationship, everything Christ did was based off of love.
Come
If you
on.
can't talk to your kids in love, listen, you can go to church and dress up and show up every day. But if you go to work and without you opening up your mouth, people don't know Christ is in you, something's wrong. If your kids don't know Christ is in you and they only know because you go to church, something's wrong. Everywhere Jesus went, he shifted the atmosphere. We ought to have enough in him, enough of him in us at home. I don't make Christian go to church, but I live God in front of him. If I mess up, I go to him and say, Christian, I didn't say that right. I'm sorry. Me and Christian got into it last
Mm.
night. I'm gonna be real. Now I didn't feel like I did nothing wrong, but guess what I said? I said, I'm sorry, Christian. Because sometimes you offend people and you don't know you do. Now, if I want to just be that type of mother, I'm his mother, he gonna do what I say. In order for people the world to see who Christ is, we gotta love him.
Because
You have
what
to
did
love
Jesus say?
people.
They
You
will
have to do
know
that.
us by how we love one another. And what are the two greatest things? All the laws rest on these two things: love God
And
and
love your
love your
neighbor.
neighbor. Come on.
And this is the last thing. It's funny how when we get married, in all my marriages, we dress up, we make sure we look pretty, we do it in front of witnesses. We want to come to that groom and we want to look good. But when we come to Christ, what we try to do is hide our sin, hide our mistakes, hide our shame. But Christ is saying, come dirty,
Mm.
come broken, come messed up. And you're saying, but God is all those witnesses. He said, but come anyway, because when you get to me, I'm going to make you
Yeah.
whole in front of all those witnesses. Don't wait. And that was my problem. I felt like I had to be perfect before I got to God. I had to have it all together. And God was saying, girl, I already know you're not perfect. Just come. I see you messed up. Just come. But in my mind, I was like, God, I'm dirty. I got to get it together. And God was like, you cannot get it together without me.
Ooh,
Come and let me help
come
you get
on,
it
John
together.
fit 5. Come
And
on.
so
Come on.
that's my thing is that don't put anybody before
Yes.
God. Don't make any moves. Don't be so in a hurry. I gotta say one more thing. I'm
Oh,
so sorry.
no, we got
So
time,
there's
girl.
this big thing going around, and they probably gonna be mad. Oh my God, where's my Boaz? Like I need my Boaz. Let me tell you something. Ruth was following Christ. Ruth was following her mother, who was following Christ. Ruth was doing the will of God. What was she doing? She was getting food for Naomi. She was working. She wasn't worrying about Boaz. If we'd work on ourselves, for
For
real.
real.
If we
For real.
heal for real. If everything you want a man to have money, but you ain't got none. So everything we're looking for in that person, let Christ make us that first. Let's not look for them. Let's look for Christ to make us. And that's what I found out. Like I want him to be like this, but I wasn't those things.
Yes.
I want him to be loving. I want him, but I wasn't those things. And the Lord was telling me, girl, love yourself first. You love you. You be kind to you. You be patient with
Yes.
you. You be considerate with you. And then you can do that with other people. But how you gonna love a mate when you can't even accept yourself? If I can't accept my mistakes, how do I accept his?
Mm.
If I
Out.
can't give my own self grace for the stuff I've done, when he
Oh,
tells me what he's done, I'm not gonna extend no grace to him. Why? Because I don't love thy neighbor as you love yourself. So what the Lord has been, I'm dating Elise right now.
mhm.
I'm getting to know Elise right now. I'm trying to find out what it is God wants me to do. I need to know myself so when Tom, Dick, and Harry come, because they are coming, I'm not open. I've closed every wound and I've closed every door. So when they do come, and they come, but you know what? Because I'm healing, I see them a mile a minute. I'm like, oh
Mm.
no. I'm like, oh no, I see you. That's okay. I'm
That's good.
good. But before I would have been like, that compliment feel good. That compliment's a band-aid. It's a
Yes.
band-aid. It's a that if a guy compliments you and you go goo goo gaga, you got a wound somewhere that hasn't
Ooh,
healed.
that's
Because should
good.
already know you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You should already know that. I think I'm done.
Yes. Well, one more
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
I know Dad said this to both of us when he said, because I asked him one time when I went to visit, I'm like, how y'all been married for 59 years and you got two daughters that ain't even stay married? And when he said, because I didn't love y'all well, how did it hit you?
Oh, something broke in me. You know what I thought? It wasn't my fault.
Me
That
too.
was my very first thought because all this time I really thought something was wrong with me. I really did. I was like, what is wrong? And then I knew people who are still married, who got married when I did. And I
Yeah.
was like, I want that. I love the idea I loved it. But I said, I don't understand. And when he said that, fathers, listen to when he said that, when a father loves a daughter, it covers her. It covers her.
Yes.
It covers her because if she doesn't know that she's loved by him, she's gonna look for that in other men. And that's
Yes.
what we did. And we didn't get that until like I'm 55
You're
now.
50.
And now I get it, but it helped me heal. And I loved him more for
Me
that
too.
because I loved him that he was able to take accountability. It's never
It's
too late because
never too late.
that healed
Never.
us by him
It
saying
did.
that. It did something. It
It
healed
it did
us.
so it did for me too.
It did
I
something.
want to thank you for helping, help sharing this moment with me and helping letting women know that you don't have to stay just because it feels safe. And you need to heal and love yourself. This is our last part of our series, just buy the book. I just want to be a wife, my successful disasters. You can get it from Amazon. And moving forward, I will be, getting into chapter 4 when I thought I had it right. Um, and we'll be doing some more things. I want to have a question. You ask me questions, and I'll have some answers for you. I do want to thank Analog Dope for the book signing and having me and my family, my friends there. Big shout out to them. I want to shout out to my Inspire Her squad. They came and supported me as well. And every second Saturday, we have coffee and conversations, supporting each other one sip at a time. And that is at Royal Coffee in Las Vegas, 5608 South Rainbow Boulevard. Meet us there, second Saturday in April. And I'll send out some flyers. I just want to say once again, thank you. I love everybody. Thank you for the support. Go get the book so you can follow
And
along
buy
with
the
me.
book before, if you're thinking about getting married, buy the book.
At least you can get a head start on.
Yes, buy the book first.
All right. Once again, thank you for your support. I love you, sis. I know
Love
I'll
you
be seeing
too.
you again soon. Thank
Love
you
you
so
too.
much.
Okay,
All
bye
right,
bye.
everybody. See you later.